Up next, we visit the Smithsonian American Art Museum, where an exhibit features paintings and photographs created during the Civil War. Curator Eleanor Harvey describes how art was influenced by the conflict and how the 19th century public saw symbolic significance for the war in landscape paintings and genre paintings, or scenes of everyday life.
This is a project that's been gestating for an awfully long time. In the wake of the bicentennial, American art scholarship really took off like a rocket. But one of the things that happened as a result of the bicentennial, I think, is that we tended to look at historical events as benchmarks along the way, nodes of progress as this great country developed. But there wasn't a lot of analytical work done on the effect of some of those events. And unless you were working on an artist like Winslow Homer, who directly engages with the Civil War, in general, the war occurs as an event in a number of these artists' lives. It sometimes shows up directly in works, but most of the time not. And as a result, there never really had been a deep study and understanding of what the war years did to American art in this country. It's a parallel that holds and doesn't hold, but I couldn't help thinking as I was musing about how to put this exhibition together that in the wake of 9/11, look at what one day did to us as a country. You have a before, a during, and an after, and we know that nothing is ever quite the same. We don't travel the same way, we don't look at each other the same way, we don't respond to events quite the same way. Pearl Harbor was a similar cataclysmic event for an earlier generation. The Civil War was supposed to last maybe an afternoon, a day, a week, a month. Both sides were rather optimistic and misjudged that rather dramatically. 4 solid years of internal war. What does that do to you as a country? It calls into question your founding precepts. It makes you suddenly see George Washington and Thomas Jefferson in a different light. How can all men be created equal when slavery still exists in this country? And so I started thinking hard about how this actually would show up in American art, particularly because I focus on landscape painting. And I kept hearing from very highly regarded people, and in all of the works that I had read, that basically the landscape painters took a pass. Very few of them served in uniform, even fewer of them bothered to go out to the battlefields, and it looked as though nothing really changed. Well, I grew up in Virginia, nominally in the South, and I kept thinking everything changed. And if American landscape painted is predicated on the notion that we are the new Eden, God does love us better. We've got Niagara Falls, we've got Natural Bridge, we don't have some of the encumbrances of earlier generations in Europe. Well, Cain kills Abel in this battle. First Manassas, it's brother against brother. And if you look back to the Bible, you get kicked out of the garden for behavior like that. You are flawed and mortal and left to roam the earth once more. The Hudson River School should have been dead in the water by the end of 1861. The fact that it isn't meant that we were looking in the wrong place in order to understand how landscape painters absorbed and dealt with the war, not so much in retrospect, but as it was happening. And over the course of, off and on, the last 30 years, I have been pulling together snippets of information, reviews from the time period, trying to understand how the war left its mark on landscape painting, which was the core question I was pursuing in putting together this exhibition.
You can watch this or other American Artifacts programs anytime by visiting our website, cspan.org/history. And watch American Artifacts every Sunday at 8 a.m., 7 p.m., and 10 p.m. Eastern, here on C-SPAN 3.